Hi, I'm Liz Pierce at Lynn Benton Community College, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about my experiences working with students on an open pedagogy project, creating a textbook that is equity-based. And I want to give you a little project context before talking to you specifically about the students' experiences and responses. So basically, this is a textbook written for HDFS 201, and the important part about the requirements that this class meets is that they really help students to meet the outcome of understanding institutionalized discrimination that's based on social characteristics. And so the need was to create a new textbook that made knowledge more equitable and was free and openly licensed. Also a textbook that would better describe the needs and experiences of current families in the United States, specifically from an equity-based viewpoint, and a textbook that had more diversity of voice and not as much as sort of the typical textbook often being written by someone like me, older and middle class and white. The funding we knew from the beginning was not sufficient in terms of the breadth and depth of this project, so we've been working on it for a while, and are continuing to work on creating this textbook. So to tell you a little bit about the students involved, in terms of getting students involved in the textbook, I did not use writing performance or writing experience as a criteria. I felt that would skew us again more toward that dominant culture voice. So instead I used a criteria of ability to express viewpoint and experience in any form, whether verbally, visually, writing, etc. And also, of course, commitment to and interest in the project. So I had students with a lot of diversity in terms of experience and also social characteristics. In terms of education, most of them were involved with HDFS, but not all. And all of them, I had some kind of relationship with them in terms of they'd taken at least one class from me, and some were also my advisees. So these are my observations and reflections. They're basically based on our interactions in the small class, written responses to survey instruments, and also individual conversations that I had with students. And I've grouped them into 4 categories. So first, thinking like an educator led students to really examine their own personal experiences in different ways, and specifically helping them to really expand that sociological imagination of looking to how their personal experiences related to families in the United States. This led people to find their own voice. This was super powerful, seeing the validity of their viewpoint, finding the courage to speak in small groups, and the courage to write for other people to read. Naturally, this sometimes led to also worry about writing in a way that might be perceived as biased. I think this is totally normal. We're used to reading textbooks that are supposedly unbiased and are often written from the dominant culture, so worrying about your writing being biased seemed like a natural outcome of this kind of project. And also some re-traumatization, students of current trauma or past trauma, and this could come up just like in a class discussion, brainstorming, crowdsourcing, but also in individualized research and writing when students dive deeper. To be transparent, the book was really is aiming to help people understand institutionalized discrimination and privilege better. So this definitely led to people seeing that their individualized experiences with injustice were not necessarily unique. And the reality of the systemic barriers to justice, this led to discouragement, to some despair, kind of a natural response to working with this kind of material. It also led to many students confronting with and reinforcing their understanding of their own privilege for students from privileged groups. And then that often led to some conflict, and it could be conflict with their own family with whom they were used to processing their learnings and deeper understandings because the family had differing beliefs about discrimination and privilege. Because we were all deeply committed to social justice and equity did not mean that we didn't still have learning to do. And that meant that we were continually educating each other on topics. And to some degree, this is a burden that's borne more by students from minoritized groups who are reminding us and exposing us to the ways that systemized discrimination leads to less access for some families and more access to others. This project gave students a real sense of vision and hope. In terms of creativity, they loved seeing their work transformed and brought out into the public and seeing other people read it. They played decision-making roles in terms of what kinds of aspects of the text should be included and what was best for student learning. They were optimistic about making a difference, helping to change the world, working toward equity, and they are mission driven to create a text that was more focused on equity and presented stories that were more diverse and looked like them in the textbook about families. So in closing, I hope this helps us have more understanding about what students are experiencing and leads to dialogue so that we can talk more about open pedagogy and equity.